Welcome everyone to the live recording of your favourite political podcast, the ever-entertaining Socially Democratic. Now, every episode is a great listen, but this one is particularly special because this one is a fundraiser, and it's a fundraiser for 4 Labor women who are fighting battleground seats this November. So without further ado, please welcome on stage Stephen Donnelly, Jessie McCrone and David Feeney.
The presenting sponsor for Socially Democratic is Dunn Street. Dunn Street is a campaign agency that specialises in community organising. We only work with people and organisations who want to build power to make the world a better place. And if you want to create change in your world in 2026, then hit us up at dunnstreet.com.au. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. If you want to join those wonderful supporters of our podcast and financially support our show so we can continue to produce great episodes every week, then we encourage you to click on the link in the show notes and subscribe to join the Patreon community of Socially Democratic. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. For over a century, Maurice Blackburn has stood up for fairness, championing the rights of everyday Australians and shaping landmark legal reforms. Today, they're harnessing new technologies to make justice more accessible, more efficient, and more responsive to the needs of modern Australia. All right, let's get on with today's episode.
We are taping this one on a Thursday evening on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. My name is Stephen Donnelly, and I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's special live recording of Socially Democratic. It's nice to be back on home soil as well. And also at the home of the Victorian Trade Union movement here at Trades Hall. I have not actually physically been in this room since I think it was like the 1995 Young Labor State Conference, in which networks stuffed the ballots, and we never had a conference for like another 9 years. Don't you love the Labor Party? Tonight is about November. We are now 100 days away from the Victorian state election, as if you don't need reminding. And tonight we have come together to support 4 talented Labor women in battleground races against the forces of darkness and evil. Tonight is also about bringing our Labor family together. Because when we stick by each other, then we are an unstoppable force. And 5 out of the last 6 election victories proves the case. But in order to do that, it requires us to do hard work and elect hard-working Labor candidates. And we are incredibly proud to be here tonight to raise money to support 4 particular candidates, Michaela, Daniela, Pauline and Belinda. And we'll be hearing from them later on in the show. So let's discuss how we're going to win this thing in November. And to help me do that, I'm joined by 2 particular winners, because between them, they've played a significant part in the role of winning 5 Victorian state elections between them. Our first guest is the former Victorian State Secretary and Campaign Director, National Assistant Secretary and former Senator and Federal Member for Batman, and the current Westgarth Primary Booth Captain.
And you won't get that job off me either.
Would you please welcome David Feeney? And our second guest is the former ALP National Organiser, Victorian Field Director and Deputy Chief of Staff to 3-peat-winning Premier Daniel Andrews and current Managing Partner at FMRS Advisory. Would you welcome Jessie McCrone? Okay, this is an upbeat podcast, but a bit like when you're a child, I used to eat all the parts of the food that I didn't like first to get that out of the way. So let's talk about the polling first, and then we can move on to other parts. But I want to talk in a more broader context as well, and not just in terms of Victoria. So we've had a number of polls released in the last week or so. We've had the Redbridge poll, and we've had the Resolve poll for Victoria, and the Labor primary is hovering around 23 to 25 percentage points. The Tories are on between 27 and 30. One Nation is on between 23 and 2. The Greens, if we still remember them, are on 14. And the Independents and other is around about 11. Now, but put that in a broader context. The national polls are very similar because Labor's primary right now is 28. Liberals are 23. This is the Resolve poll that dropped yesterday. 26 to One Nation, 12 to the Greens, and 11 to other. And even in New South Wales, it's competitive because Labor's primary is only 29 there. They've got an election in March next year. The Liberals are on 23. One Nation's on 25. So there's a bit of a pattern here. And I know that we often sort of, beat ourselves over the shoulder about how things are maybe tracking here in Victoria, but there's a broader thing happening here. My first question to you, Jessie, is not an easy one, but with those numbers going on in New South Wales and federally, is any Labor leader safe right now?
I was just going to start with an easy one, shall we, Stephen? I think that the Victorian election was always going to be a very important election for the country. And one of the things that I've said on the podcast before is that for the Liberal Party, this election is existential. If they do not win in Victoria this time, I think that the Liberal Party could nearly be conceived as kaput. They are irrelevant nationally, I would say. They are struggling in New South Wales, and we'll get to the polling element of your question, where they are going through, I think all of them are going through ICAC right now. And you have a lot of the Liberal Party looking to Victoria as the great white hope of some good that can come for them around the country. And so that was already at play. But when you look at those polls, the other reason that Victoria is going to be such an important election when it comes to devising how the Labor Party will organise itself over the next 5 to 10 years is, how is One Nation going to go? How are we all going to survive in this new, possibly ongoing three-party system? And I think Victoria will be the real test of how One Nation actually performs in a contested election. They were involved in the South Australian one, but not really. They weren't conceived of as a real threat to the reported coronation of Malinowskis, and I will point out that in the end it wasn't really a coronation. So watching these election results is going to be incredibly important to the Federal Party, to New South Wales, and obviously to the people of Victoria and how the state is governed over the next 4 years. But it is not as straightforward as how we would previously look at polls and just make snap decisions about what that means. And unfortunately for the 4 candidates, it's a live fire examination about how this new dynamic is actually going to play out. David, is there anything particular you want to disagree with, or are you going to open with what you agree with out of that statement?
Well, just refine and improve. I think South Australia was a very interesting election in that respect. And what will always stay with me is the image of the new Liberal leader celebrating the result because she had successfully won 5 seats in a parliament of 48. And so they were celebrating the fact that they hadn't slipped quietly into the night and vanished as a party.
Do they have party status at 5 seats?
But I think it was then in the gift of Premier Malinowskis as to whether they would have such a thing. So what we saw there was the Labor Party at the height of its powers, young popular government, and the Liberal Party kind of vanish off stage. But there are lessons, I think, about that. And the fact that you've referred to the New South Wales polling is interesting, because there we have a Labor government that is also in the prime of its political life. It's a young government. The Premier is very popular. Everyone is imagining that the government's going to get emphatically re-elected in March of next year, and it's wandering around with a primary vote of 29%, which, for dinosaurs like myself, every number used to have to have a 4 in front of it before you felt competitive, and now we're in this world where 20-something is apparently viable. So what does that mean for Victoria? Well, it means that we are also in the same kind of anarchy that's besetting the whole country. And what does this anarchy mean? Well, you wouldn't want to be a National Party MP because you would think...
Well, for many reasons.
Good for tweed coats. Because the National Party are literally facing, in November, annihilation at a Victorian level as One Nation sweeps the field of their seats. And so what's the best case scenario for the Liberal leader as they offer themselves as an alternative premier? The best case scenario they can offer is that they'll turn up in Parliament with 30-something members, strike a deal with One Nation, and then govern as a minority party. That's the best case scenario.
With a party that you would expect to fragment on the other side.
Right. So, and then how does that journey unfold? Well, what history tells us about One Nation is that their party immediately begins dissolving like an aspirin. Again, thinking about South Australia, it got national media when one of the newly elected One Nation MPs got to their feet in the Parliament and in their inaugural speech said, outed themselves as being homosexual and thanked their Filipino lover. And I did think to myself, gee, they don't make fascists like they used to. This is not what fascists used to look like. I mean, it'd be like herding cats. And so imagine you're the Liberal leader in Victoria and you've just become the Premier and you've got these 20 people you're relying on, and any day, any one of them could do anything. And so it'll be... Now, of course, the media will love this because it'll just be a Catherine wheel of catastrophe rolling through the media But it won't bring Victorians the kind of antidote that they're looking for. It might be a salutary lesson for Australians about One Nation, but we don't want to be the poor population that has to teach it to them. So how does Labor then cast itself knowing that that's the alternative, that our adversary is in fact this strange amalgam of sort of populist, neo-fascist anarchy in One Nation, and then the Liberal Party desperately trying to be all things to all people while holding off the Teals, holding off One Nation. So we have we're in a target-rich environment and we have to make the most of it.
I'm interested in getting your thoughts on, there was some research done by Ascent Polling, and the University of Melbourne did a bit of a deep dive, and it got released last week. So, I mean, just putting the primary, the regular monthly polls to one side, because it's a reflection on the electorate's mood at that moment, but it's not actually the election itself. But I just want to sort of ground the conversation in some of the things that came out of that particular poll, and they asked a series of questions of voters, which, internal party research, we do this as well. This is nothing sort of...
groundbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. But they asked these voters, what are the top issues that will dictate your vote at the election? And also, which party do you think is the strongest on this particular issue? And 68% of those surveyed said that cost of living is in my top three. 56% of those surveyed said that crime and safety is in my top three. And then a bit of a gap here, 37% of those surveyed said that healthcare and hospitals is in my top three. And then they went and asked, which party do you think is the strongest on these particular issues? For cost of living, the Coalition leads Labor by about 6 points on this particular issue. On crime and public safety, the Coalition leads Labor by 9 points, and actually One Nation is only 3 or 4 points behind the Coalition on this particular matter. And then with healthcare and hospitals, Labor is ahead by 5 points, which is a number that I actually was surprised at when I saw that. You'd naturally think that this, health education is sort of our strong suits. So that was close as well. And I just want to get your reactions, and to you first, Jessie. What do you see from either of the two major parties in terms of the things that they are talking to with their campaign versus the issues that we're getting? Now, whether this research, how accurate it is, I don't know.
It was a reasonable sample size.
Yeah, absolutely.
They know what they're doing. Well, I would touch first on cost of living. I remember in 2018, we were worried we were coming up to an election, so I sought out the advice of esteemed gentleman to talk to him about the issues that we had understood were affecting us and how we would go about them. And he said, well, what's the number one issue? And I said, cost of living. And then David said, Well, yes, cost of living's been an issue ever since man, and it was man, that first went to trade their chicken for something else. Cost of living's always going to be the issue, Jessie. How are you attaching it to our other strengths? I was like,
sounds like Yoda.
With slightly better syntax, which is kind of the point. Now, I do think cost of living now is certainly a more palpable issue than it was then. But I would say there is a way to connect Labor's strengths with those things. And we've done it before and we'll absolutely be able to do it again. When it comes to how this election is being framed, I think that Premier Carroll has gone out of his way right now to clear the decks, to try and clear the air, to ensure that there is a launch pad for those policies, and I think we'll see some of those. We've seen a very swift movement on some significant issues that the media have been very focused on, and that is to bring the space, to bring these fresh, new ideas for why people should vote Labor. But when it comes to the Liberal Party, I would say, and I've been saying this in the podcast for some time, they have been entirely focused on grievance, and it has not been working for them. It certainly has done challenging things to the Labor primary, but it hasn't necessarily been increasing theirs. And if you are just going to be an opposition that pushes grievance, particularly in a context where you have one nation who are going to do grievance better than anyone, it is not really a strategy that can be election winning. The caution I would add on that, though, is I think we have seen from Jess Wilson and the Liberals in the past fortnight a significant shift in the things they're talking about and how they're talking about them. And they have gone heavily into cost of living, and it is an issue. And they have tried where they can to tie it back to their brand strength. So we should be mindful of that.
David, with those figures about where Labor is trailing the Tories on those, particularly on cost of living and on crime, but slightly ahead on health, if you were the campaign director again, which one would you begin to prioritise first to start to actually make some either inroads or build a bit of a distance between you and the opposition?
Yeah, I think the key thing about all of those issues, those polling numbers and the kind of methodology they follow encourage us to think about those issues in terms of silos. And in fact, you need to think of them, I think, in terms of entanglement, because often they are deeply involved with one another. And so you've got to bear that in mind. When I think about cost of living, for instance, regarding the wonderful words that Yoda said earlier, the thing about cost of living, and Albo, I think, gave us a masterclass in this in the lead up to the last federal election. There's only so much governments can do about cost of living, and the electorate comprehend that. But they nonetheless inevitably feel angry about how their circumstances are being squeezed, and they are then more likely to contemplate the idea that politicians are a distant ruling class who don't comprehend their pain. And so the critical issue is connectedness. And Albo did this very successfully led up to the last federal election, where economists and commentators laughed at the various levers he was pulling because they regarded them as inadequate. But of course, by pulling them, inadequate as they may have been, he was demonstrating the fact that he caught the problem and he was doing all he could to make a difference, large or small as that was. And I think to take from that lesson, the critical thing is demonstrate connectedness, that you are not some distant ruling class, that the Labor Party understands, and it's in our brand, in our name, as we sit here in the Workers' Parliament, that we understand that cost of living is real, and while we might not be able to fix it, we'll do all within our power. And as long as you persuade the electorate, the people of Victoria, that is your well-intentioned and absolute commitment, they'll believe you. And I think that's what we have to do. The coalition approach this issue, and they can't help themselves because of where they're from, with a big macroeconomic lens. This is microeconomics. This is people wrestling with their household budgets. This isn't fixing it at the top end of Collins Street or with a new banking deal. So we need to show that we've got a policy suite which is about connectedness and about doing what we can, great or small as it might be, that will make a difference to people. And I guess to my first point about entanglement, when I listen to those numbers about health or law and order or crimes, it's important to think about how those things are eternal. Some of them are eternal, and how can we reframe them? So Victorian Labor has been famously successful at turning the law and order debate into a debate about resourcing police. We're not going to have some mad auction about punitive measures. We're going to have an auction about how we can give police the resources and the people they need to do their job. So we haven't wandered off into defund the police land, where parts of the US Democrats have gone, and we haven't wandered off into mandatory sentencing and other issues, which is natural ground for the coalition. We've had a resources debate. Now, in recent times, that's just got harder because crime has got harder. But we need to have an eagle eye on how we can have that debate around things where we're in government and we're competent to fix them or make a difference. We can put a police station there. We can hire more PSOs. But there are resourcing debates we should embrace.
One thing that fell out of that research, Jessie, that I was interested in is that corruption was one of the issues that they asked voters.
I'm interested you were drawn to that.
Yeah. Why?
If you give him a fiver, he'll tell you.
What are you saying about me? Very on a level. But it was the voters put it, only 20% or 22% of those surveyed said it was in their top three. Now, if you read the front page of The Age the last 6 months, you think that corruption is the number one issue. Were you surprised that it was so low?
Am I surprised that journalists have no idea what the community thinks? No, I'm not surprised by that at all. I do think that it is going to be a very rocky 3 months until the election. And I think it's fair to say the media think they've had a win. And I think that you will see a fair bit of flexing from the media about what they think should happen next. And I think the party is going to be smarter than that and realise that we have a very strong campaign team and some very smart people who actually do know what voters think and what they want, and that is the thing we should be focusing on, not the thing that journalists think are important. Frankly, they are not super representative of the public. They do not live very far away from where we're sitting right now. They do not face the challenges that most voters do. And I think that over-indexing their views is not going to deliver an election victory.
Let me disagree.
I'm shocked.
22% is a very bad number. The fact that that sentiment is so strong in the state is a very bad number because, frankly, we know that corruption is not a true curse of Australian democracy, but what is a true curse is if the electorate think that it's taken hold or there are corrupt people. There are two things that will kill you stone dead in Australian politics. One is if they think you're arrogant, and the second is if they think you're corrupt. And the fact that 22% think that this government is corrupt, or the corruption is an issue, or the corruption is an issue.
Not what it said. What it said is that it is something they would vote on.
I can't believe you're speaking
over
me.
That's not what they said.
This is a microaggression.
It'll be a macroaggression in a minute.
We should take that very seriously, and the government has. But it's not something we can... Now, I mean, The Age has obviously run its campaign. Geoffrey Watson SC has persuaded the world that $15 billion was stolen. All of these things are a problem that has to be wrestled with. And obviously Premier Carroll is now doing just that. But I remember in the olden days when a lot of voters thought that Jeff Kennett was a little bit off colour because he was disemboweling the Auditor-General. And no one had a clear idea who the Auditor-General was. And no one had a clear idea what the Auditor-General did.
Still don't.
But the idea that was constraining, that Jeff Kennett was constraining reasonable checks and balances on government had people in arms. And it did. And people would say that it's outrageous what's happened to the Auditor-General and please don't ask me any questions about why. So we need to understand that with deadly seriousness and fix it. And I think that's because if a punter thinks that you're arrogant or a crook, it doesn't matter what else you say, you're done. So we have to fix that because they are barriers. In this case, this is a barrier to people voting Labor, and of course that's an outrage because it ain't so. So that's that we have to communicate that.
I don't think he actually did disagree with anything I said. To be clear, he brought up Jeff Kennett, and I would say, the media still seem to think he has some sense of what's going on, and he really doesn't.
Let's talk about the coalition. And I always want to paint a picture because right now maybe some of us in the room are thinking, geez, they're kind of getting their shit together, and in some degrees they are, but I just want to remind folks where they currently sit at this very moment. Their party membership is ageing. And members are leaving in droves and actually going and joining One Nation and are being the booth captains for One Nation against them in all of these critical battleground seats. They are riddled with internal division and they're only papering over these cracks at the moment for some sort of latent desire to win. They're placing all of their hopes in this rookie MP as their leader. Their primary vote has collapsed by 10 points since Jess Wilson became leader. Obviously, as you said before, David, the Nationals are in an existential crisis against One Nation. The Liberals are in this kind of weird situation where they're trying to work out, are we a progressive Liberal party and try and make sure we don't lose seats in the inner east, or are we some sort of hardline right-wing Conservative party so we hold seats in the outer suburbs? There are questions about the sophistication of their campaign operation. They can't fill booth rosters. They have no, sort of canvassing program to speak of. Talking to the candidates during the week, I think Michaela and Daniela have candidates. Cranbourne may have pre-selected a candidate over the weekend. Belinda does not have a candidate.
She's okay with that. She doesn't want
100 days to go, and this is meant to be the operation that's ready to take over and govern Victoria. I want to go to you, Jessie. First of all, the Liberals are saying it's a fresh start. Are we buying what Jess Wilson is trying to sell?
Well, I would say the media are buying what Jess Wilson is trying to sell. I don't know that the public is. Let's be clear. Her primary has dropped, I think, 8 points since she became leader. I think that's
10.
10. Are you just upping it because it sounds better?
No,
it's 10.
Yeah.
I don't know that she's connecting as well as certainly some parts of the media want to have you believe. And I think the Liberal Party, I must admit, I am surprised at how she has been able to hold Bev MacArthur back. I actually did think that was going to be a bigger challenge given that Bev installed her. And I have long suspected that is why they haven't been able to offer a clear policy agenda, is because internally they cannot agree one. And I think that is an ongoing challenge for them that you've seen. As I said, in the last couple of weeks, they certainly have upped the ante. They have made a couple of announcements. I wouldn't say they are groundbreaking announcements, but I do think, so I do wonder how much they're going to be able to be a collective force during the campaign.
David, what do you make of New Liberal?
I think she's doing what I call a Scott Morrison. So if you remember 2018, the federal election in 2018, And Scott Morrison held a meeting with all of his cabinet, having just become leader and Prime Minister, held a meeting with all of his cabinet and said, part of my campaign plan for the months ahead is for all of you to go home and not leave. To stay there, don't answer the phone, don't take any calls, stay hidden. If you've got a basement, stay in that. And I'm going to do everything. And so that of course meant that a number of embarrassing characters suddenly disappeared from public view. And the Liberal Party proceeded into the campaign with what appeared to be remarkable message discipline, because there was one bloke doing everything. And all of the warts and all of the embarrassments stayed in their basement. But for the media, that was enough, because the travelling party, led by Scott Morrison, wandered the field, captured the media every day. They were the story. And for people tuning in only during the election period, who don't pay close attention to these things, they thought, well, see, they sound like they know what they're doing and they've got a leader and blah, 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 blah. And the trick worked. And then after the election, he released them all back into the wild and they wrecked his government. And he gave himself 10 ministries to try and... But anyway, this isn't about the Morrison government. Jess has looked at that playbook and said, that's what I'm going to do. I've got this basket case of horrors over here and I'm going to hide them all. And no one's going to see them or hear from them, and they've all consented to this in the hope that they might get a big white car and a ministry at the end. And so she has suddenly brought something new to the Liberal Party. She's brought them message discipline. And the media have, as they did with Scott Morrison, watching her, following her. And, you know, just this week we got a reminder about why she shouldn't let anyone else in her team speak. And she is, to her credit, capable, intelligent, energetic, vivacious. They employed her for a reason. She's doing her job. She's keeping the rest of them in the zoo while she roams Victoria and Melbourne. So what we have to do as a Labor Party is remind people that basket of horrors remains and it will be eventually unleashed. And they'll do two things. They'll stuff everything up that they touch, and they'll fight with one another. They only fight with the Labor Party when they've got the energy left over from slaying each other. So they'll get back to it, and they'll have 20 or so Fruit Loop One Nation people to do it with. So part of our challenge is to remind ourselves that behind the Jess Wilson AstroTurf, which has been very successful and has captured the imagination of our media who want a contest, there is another story that has to be told.
And part of that is drawing them out, which means being proactive in your policy agenda and the announcements you want to make, and making a couple of strategic announcements that you know are going to blow apart the other team. You need to put some pressure on their internal...
And debates. We want to see them out of their basements and forced into public view where they have to say something that might have an idea in it. Because if they say something that might have an idea in it, you can bet London to a brick it'll be catastrophic.
Well, that's a lovely segue, David, because this month the Coalition made one of their first forays into making an announcement which I would call as proactive, a positive announcement with a plan. If elected, they would introduce these PSOs in hospitals. But the actual media conference didn't go so well. Let's have a listen or a look. I think we're doing that.
I haven't spoken to all of the management of all of the 7 hospitals, but I have spoken with several.
So how many of the 7 have you checked with?
I've checked with one of the management. I haven't got around to all of the management. We work with all stakeholders.
But you didn't in this case.
We work with all stakeholders, Paul. We work with all stakeholders.
But you didn't ask the chief or the hospitals.
We do wide consultation.
But not with the management.
Question, next question.
So
we work with all stakeholders.
After that, I just sort of imagined them getting Jess Wilson and...
back in the basement.
Getting back in the car together, If it was like a scene from Veep. what Jess would be saying to Crozier and the other ones. Well, yeah, fucked that up, didn't you?
I don't think Crozier's in the car. I think she's in a
You're walking home.
It was change with continuity.
Yeah. Jessie, how would you have handled that?
Well, let's start with, actually as a strategic move, the concept of tying your brand strength around community safety to something that isn't your brand strength but voters care about, being health, is not a bad strategy. I would broadly say that when you are doing announcements, you have to make sure that your stakeholders are aligned. When I still worked in government, that was a significant part of our time was spent going through the coordination of an event like that, and I'd like to think something like that wouldn't have happened. It never did, actually. Credit to a bunch of the people I see in the room that I asked. Have you spoken to the hospital yet?
David, I'm interested in, you just touched on it a little bit before about drawing them out, but where would you be focusing your attacks on the Tories in terms of putting pressure on them? What areas would you be sort of honing your missiles?
Well, I think the answer to that is specifics. So they are going to wander through the next 100 days trying to get away with a whole lot of motherhood statements, which and this is the big problem. We see the big picture, but what they will desperately try and avoid is questions that go to the specifics. How are you going to do that? How is that objective going to be realised? And it's tricky because you want them, you want to pin them down in such a way as Victorians see that behind the veil there is nothing. Because their next idea will be their first. They haven't got a plan. What they've got is a photo and an astroturfed leader and a polling report that tells them the kind of words they should be using. But they haven't demonstrated that behind that there's any kind of meaningful plan for Victoria. So they'll want to talk about debt. Well, what's their plan to deal with debt? Well, they won't want to discuss that. What's their plan to enliven the economy? A great example of this, I thought, was some months ago when the government launched some policies into the state parliament, and the Liberal Party were just too terrified to articulate a view for or against. They've kind of got a Ming Vase approach, which is as long as no one asks us any questions and no one asks us anything difficult, we can just get through this thing based on the fact that everyone's fed up with them and we're the only other option. And that plan has to be unravelled. And I guess we'll come to this, but they're not the only other option anymore. One Nation and the Teals are eating their lunch.
Let's talk a little bit about One Nation. Jess Wilson's been asked on a number of occasions by journalists, in the event that there is, 20 odd seats that are won by One Nation, will you enter into a coalition? During Daniel Andrews' tenure, both as leader and then as Premier, he was asked, leading up to election campaigns constantly, would you enter into a coalition with the Greens? And his response was, Jessie,
no deals offered, no deals done.
And Jess Wilson's response so far is, I'm focusing on forming a majority coalition government. Do you think that she's prepared to confront this? Because I feel like Pauline Hanson's going to be chasing after around Victoria for the whole election campaign. How is Jess Wilson going to try and extract herself
from that? I think there's a big difference
between
the two. I mean, obviously there is. But
numerically there definitely is, right?
The big difference is that for Daniel Andrews and Victorian Labor, that was a frightening but remote prospect. Whereas for the Liberal Party, that's their best case scenario. And of course, as it transpired, Labor won a majority and no deals needed to be done. So that kind of scenario never got off the ground. But if Jess Wilson's plans come to pass, that's precisely where she'll be. The day after the election, she'll be sitting down with the menagerie that is One Nation and trying to negotiate.
And probably all of them. Like, she won't just be able to speak to the leader.
No, they'll have a few co-conveners by then.
Yeah.
And they'll probably split into a couple of different parts. Who knows?
There'll be a reference group set up.
Clive Palmer might turn up to try and bring them some unity. So Pauline will be on the phone. Anyway, it'll be a zoo. But that's her best case scenario. Her best case scenario is that. It's sitting down with her one National Party survivor and 29 Libs and working out how they can lasso others into a coalition.
Jessie, how fair do you think One Nation are? There was an interesting article today by Chip Legrand about, how prepared are One Nation to run here in Victoria. There was a suggestion that they actually aren't that ready, even though that they're polling quite well. Do you see them, by the time we get to the campaign proper, that they will have candidates running across all these?
Well, they're certainly talking a big game. And that doesn't mean that there's any accuracy to it, but they're certainly talking a big game about running a full, proper campaign. And there are two reasons why they may not have announced candidates. The first one is they don't have them. That is probably the most obvious and it's probably the most likely. But the second is One Nation are wise to the fact that we keep killing their candidates by pointing out things they've said. And they are extremely aware of this, and the first thing they do is delete everything on any social media that anyone, anywhere has done.
Because of the democracy unit that you set up.
Because the...
What's it called again?
It's called the Empowering Democracy Unit.
That's it.
Because it is important that people know who they're voting for, Stephen.
100%.
It's something that I've always thought. But One Nation may be holding back candidates because they're wise to the Democracy Empowerment Unit and its power. But there is more than having a candidate, with due respect to the candidates here. There is more to running a campaign locally than just having a candidate. And the question is, are they capable of that? I don't know. And I think that when we get to the probably unanswerable questions is, what happens to that 20% of the vote if there is no candidate on the ticket for people to vote for that is One Nation?
I remember Kim Beazley said 20 years ago, and they were wise words at the time, and it's only got truer since, the Labor Party is the only party in this country that can hand out how-to-vote cards at every polling place across the land, whether you're in far north, Northern Territory or in Tasmania or anywhere in between. The Labor Party has the people to hand out how-to-vote cards.
We have so many people, sometimes we send them to hand out for the other people.
I don't know anything about that.
I do. I do. So many stories.
Yeah, great.
Because the Greens never hold up their end of the bargains.
So will One Nation, as the menagerie brings itself together, have the people to literally do all of that work across the state? I think there's got to be a big question mark around that.
Some of our candidates are sitting in the front row, and so I think it's time let's have a chat to them. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a game called Shag, Marry, Kill. They don't know this? No, not
Tell you what, the answer is not Kylie Minogue.
That's not true. Who'd make a rookie mistake?
Anyway, no, we're not doing that. No, we're going to...
But we do have some fruit. Anyway, go on.
Well, no, we're going to play a game called Two Truths and a Lie. And
they've agreed to this?
Yeah, they have. No, but you've got to guess. So the rules are that we're going to hear from individually our four wonderful MPs. They're going to come up and we're going to have a quick little chat, and then they're going to share three stories, three facts, quote unquote, and then you two have to work out which one is the lie, is how we're going to do this. Okay. Right. But it feels like we're sort of like on some late night talk show, because I'm going to ask you to...
Oh, we're going to move
It's like the Moon Griffin show. I'm going to ask you to move along. And I'd like... Can you please give a round of applause for Daniela De Martino. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
No worries.
Thanks for having me here. It's great, and thanks everyone who's come along tonight.
Absolutely.
supporting Monbulk.
Now, we have something in common because we both worked for the SDA. So do you want to do this conversation in English or Latin?
How about Italian, Stephen?
Okay, well, molto bene, that's all I got.
As the only qualified Latin speaker here, I'm a bit hurt by that.
Well, actually, there's someone in the audience that won a prize for Latin when they were in high school, but I won't shame them and get them to stand up and do that. But anyway, his name's John. Okay, Monbulk.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Monbulk. In my time at head office, you Hill people
Yep.
had a great crew of volunteers. It's you would have to have big calves to walk all of those hills.
Yep.
To go knock on doors and talk to voters. We're 100 days out from the campaign. How's your campaign looking in terms of your volunteer capacity? You're ready to knock on those doors again. And I'm sure you've probably been doing the work beforehand anyway. But just how are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready. We're we're still building as well. We've got more people who are signing up, and when I'm out on the doors or talking to people, you find an enthusiastic person. They're like, "Oh, good luck, give it everything," and you go, "Great," and I go, "Do you want to join?" And sometimes they say yes, and it's great. But my field organiser's actually here at the moment. He's at the back. Woo-hoo! Give it up for Seb. And we've got some good stats. I think, is it 100 and... How many people have we already
You can
had
lie
contact
now,
with?
no
You can
one will
shout it
know.
out, Seb. 95. 95, and it's great. And some new to campaigning in Monbulk, and some who've been campaigning for quite a long time. And I'm looking at a couple of them, second row, sitting here. I've got Vanda and Lynn, who are stalwarts. We've been out on the hustings, now for good 4 years together, and there was such a strong community of volunteers up in the hills, and as you say, us hills folk, and yes, you don't need a stairmaster, just come and knock Monbulk's doors and save yourself money on a gym membership, people. And it's a strong set of volunteers. Some of them have said to me, "Look, darling, I'm 75 plus and I can't walk those hills anymore, but I'll come and stuff envelopes." So it's good. It's good. And it's a great way to go and speak with people and connect with them.
Very good. Okay, let's do this.
Sure.
Two truths and a lie. Over to you.
All right. So I've tried to localise. So it's a bit thematic, and some of it was coming to me as I was sitting here listening to you, Stephen, before, and being over at the bar and where we are in locations. So 4 pillars, the gin that's being served tonight. When I owned my organic grocery, I supplied all of their oranges so they could make their beautiful gin. So that was me. That was my business. I was supplying them. Oh, on top of other things, I supplied their oranges, number 1. Number 2, back in my Melbourne uni days, where I spent far too much time in Lygon Street, I had a short-lived experience as a spruiker at La Spaghettata restaurant. Do you need a table for 4? I can do a table for 4. Come on in. We've got plenty of room. No worries. $40, 2 courses. In you come. And the third, you did mention the Fair Star, did you not?
I did.
1989, Fair Star. I was on it. I played Con the Fruiterer. We were in a cyclone and the Little River Band watched me perform. Glenn Shorrock then said, "Well done, kid. You were great." And I said, "You guys weren't so bad yourselves." They're my 2 truths and a lie.
All right.
All right.
So the only thing about the second one sounded very true. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it was some time ago, and $40 for 2 courses isn't the deal that you think it is.
Yeah, that's all empathy.
I'm a little
cost of
sus on the
living thing.
cash.
I can't remember.
I think the lie is the gin.
Oh, okay.
What are they using the oranges for?
You need it to, you distill, you have a whole range of botanicals.
No, she's gonna suck you in if you are.
You don't need a caucus and come up with the same one.
We do.
No, this is...
We'll be here for
Yeah.
months. David, you're saying the gin. Jessie, what are you saying?
I'm going to go with David.
Oh, okay.
Smart choice.
No, that was the truth.
Oh!
What was the lie?
The lie was being a spruiker at La Spaghettata.
Should have followed your instinct.
Tell you what, if the game was working out how much you would pay per kilo of mincemeat, I would be all over it.
Should have backed yourself, Jessie.
I know.
That was a nice little vignette of patriarchy then, wasn't it?
It's a cinematic universe, David. We don't need a vignette.
Daniela, thank you so much, and good luck with the campaign.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Belinda, come on down.
All right, I'm on my toes now.
Belinda Wilson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited and honoured to be sitting on
Welcome.
this couch with these two amazing people, and of course with you, Stephen.
Thank you. I am as well. Let's now. You're going because you ran for the first time last time, right? So this is your first time as an incumbent.
It is.
What did you learn from the first time candidate that you're going to do differently this time, or something you're like, that's something I need to continue to do? I did well. What's some of the key lessons you're going to take into this campaign?
Knock, 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 call.
Did you do that last time or not do this time?
Look, I did do... No, I've done it. That's what I learned that you have to keep doing.
Yep.
What am I going to do this time that I didn't do last time?
Yeah.
Try and breathe a bit more and enjoy the experience. It's really hard to explain to someone what it's like being a candidate. I think first time around is really stressful. And second time around, I think, is worse because, you know what the job is, what it entails, you know the work that you've done, the work that you've got that you want to do moving forward. And so, you don't want to lose that. No. And also, hearing what we've been talking about, the opposition, I mean, it's, to think that someone could possibly nominate to be a candidate against me 8 weeks out, because at the moment I don't have anybody, and take my job is like frightening. And just having as many conversations as I can to explain to people that this is real and that we may not win. And if you don't, if we don't use our voices and work hard, then this state's in a lot of trouble.
Are you surprised that the Tories haven't pre-selected? Is that
so? I had a woman following me. I had a guy following me around for about 6 months. He then...
There's laws against that in this state.
I know.
Community safety is out of control.
He then stood down from the Liberal Party and said he was going to stand for One Nation, but he also ran for council and said he was more aligned to the Greens. So if you can kind of work out that...
Sounds like a quality candidate.
He still hasn't read his head again. And then I had a woman who had been following me around for the last couple of months who said she was going to stand, and you two will love this. She failed the Liberal vetting process.
Wow.
Now, we know how amazing that vetting process is. For those who know who my candidate was last time.
Yeah.
They don't really have a vetting process, and so for her to fail that is interesting.
To the candidate that ran against you last time, his main policy, which was, I think, women shouldn't be able to have childcare, is actually the mainstream policy for One Nation now. Well, so he's just ahead of his time.
And maybe he will turn up again, the good old dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah, I haven't seen him since, but yes, candidates are interesting, but it is a bit of an anxiety thing too, I think, for us as members of Parliament to find out who is running against us. Yeah. What do they stand for, Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, there's obviously that sophomore swing that you'll get as well, so just keep...
Everyone keeps talking about this sophomore swing.
Just bank that as well. Obviously, do the work you got to do, but just know that there's a bit of a brand recognition coming through.
Well, I think two things for me in the southeast is the Labor brand is strong because people know what we do and what we stand for.
Yep.
And working hard, unless you work hard, you don't get results. And so we do that in the southeast. We're a very big team out there. We work hard as a team. We meet regularly. We chat. We compare notes, and that's held us in good stead for the last 4 years, and will for the next 4.
You should be impressed. When Stephen was a party official, I never heard him comfort a candidate by saying, "You'll get a sophomore swing." That never happened.
He's mellow.
He has.
Yeah. Okay, let's do 2 truths and a lie. Over to you, Wilson.
I changed mine.
Oh, did you?
No, you obviously didn't read my text, Stephen.
No, I did.
I changed one of them. Anyway, let's see how we go. So I love the AFL, love footy. Not this week, but I do. And I regularly support a team. I'm actually a fourth generation a follower of the Western Bulldogs. Woo!
That's the whole club yelling out right there.
In light of good old Johnny Young passing away this week, when I was 5 years old, I actually performed on Young Talent Time.
Oh.
Half the room's going, what is that show?
I know, they're all too young. Anyway, do some Googling. And I had the pleasure of working in a federal office, and I worked for Josh Burns for 5 years.
Okay, so what have we got? We've got fourth generation Doggies fan, was on Young Talent Time.
Young Talent Time when I was
worked
5.
for 5 years for the member for McNamara.
Yeah.
So, just to be clear, it's not the amount of years you work for Josh that might be the lie.
You're not going to say it was 4.5.
Yeah, like you're not going to do us on the dates. Just that's harsh. I am confident. This is the challenging thing about the football thing is when she announced she was running and she introduced herself on Instagram, she is wearing a football jersey hat.
Oh my God, I love that you remember that about me.
The Democracy Empowerment Unit did a lot of work on our people, their people, everyone.
I was wearing a beanie. That's very true.
But I cannot tell you what team it was.
I think.
She was also on Neighbours?
I think Johnny Young is
Yeah,
alive.
no, but she was on Neighbours and maybe that's where she got her start.
Ah. Okay, let's say Josh Burns is the lie.
No, but she did work for Josh Burns. How long?
But she might have only been 3.5 years.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Western Bulldogs.
Ooh.
You're going with Western Bulldogs?
David?
No, okay, Mum's shaking her head and I don't know why.
I'm going to say the Young Talent Time.
Well, you both should have stuck to your stories because I was with Josh Burns for 3 years.
Oh,
That's cheating.
that's not fair.
You're out.
You should have known that.
I know.
You got done on a technicality.
Like both times I've asked the question.
You can't ask questions,
yeah,
right? That's not how it works.
Yeah,
That's not how it works.
Go with the instinct.
Belinda Wilson, good luck with the campaign. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Let's give a round of applause to Belinda. All right. Pauline, come on down. Now, Pauline, if anyone's listened to the show a lot, and we've never spoke about this, Pauline, but I do name check you a little bit because I think you're an incredibly talented local member and candidate. And so whenever I'm trying to talk about who's doing good work, I always name you. And I mean that. I mean that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm a diligent listener. I absolutely spend my time driving 56 kilometres into the city, and Socially Democratic is my entertainment on the way in. I'm just going to say there's a lot of love in this room. This is extraordinary. I just want to say how much love there is for the podcast. It's great.
Last campaign in 2022, there was, I don't know whether if it was in the media or just there was a vibe, but people were saying like, Cranbourne's one of the ones that we're going to lose, right? People were saying
yes,
we're going to.
Right. Yeah, I got briefed. I wasn't going to win.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now
Who did that?
I went out.
I'm not going to tell you.
I went out.
I wouldn't tell people they'd lost until weeks afterwards.
I went out and canvassed for you with that person that's standing up over there right now. He knocked a hell of a lot more doors than I did, Sebastian. But certainly the day I spent in your electorate, the response I was getting on the door was overwhelmingly positive. I remember driving home going, Pauline's got this in the bag. Like, I don't know how this is going to be a problem. Now, in the end, you got a 46% primary,
that's right? Yep.
You almost won on primary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the secret?
You know what I love. So I'm a fanatical door knocker, and I said to somebody today, actually, we were talking about, having 60,000 constituents and just calling 30 people a day, and I said to this guy, actually, I do this for my mental health. This is the way that I calm down, and everyone in the Southeast, I think, knows that that's something that's been our strength in the Southeast. It's our way to reflect a little bit on what's actually going on, so to get out of, reading about what's important. The best way for us to be focused on what's important is to go and speak to people. I also have this kind of little curiosity as well. I think, gosh, what's going on over there? What's going on over there? I haven't been here for a while. So I'd like to tell you there was a scientific method, and there's some, everyone knows Jamie Trotter is the one of your alumnus, field organiser.
Class of 16.
I'd love to say that there's some science to it, but really between elections, I just sort of think, I'm just a bit curious. Let's go east. Let's go west. Let's go south for a little while and just kind of, wander around and speak to everyone. It's a really lovely way to remind ourselves of the job we do, why we love it and what's important and the people who are really important to us. And it also reminds us how to speak to people because having been an advisor, I think that it's really important to remember that people speak, we're talking to our neighbours. And so when we are speaking about something, a policy or something that's important to people, that when it's like a muscle, when we're talking to people on a door and when we're just being, fairly diligent about doing at least a Friday afternoon between elections, it means that we're reminding ourselves about how to speak about what we're doing. It's not just what we're doing, but how to speak about what we're doing and what's important. So that's, I think that was the secret sauce.
When I was door knocking that day, I got invited in for a cup of tea.
Yes.
So someone said, we love Pauline. You've done such a great job. Come in. I was like, look, I've been doing this for 20 minutes, but I'll have a cup of tea.
I do joke. Yeah, I do joke that tea is the language of our community. So a lot of people know that we've got an incredibly diverse community. And so, we were just discussing before the languages of our community, the top languages that people speak. And so there's two things that happen really frequently on the door. Of course, we're invited in for tea, and one of my, I've got some stories about door knocking you won't be surprised to know in the truth and lie section. But the other thing that really is hilarious that happens frequently, and I'm sure Belinda might experience the same thing, is somebody says, I just have to FaceTime my family. My mother is not going to believe that a member of Parliament is here on her own. Yeah. And I've got this kind of little backpack with a donkey on it. Is this it? Yeah, I've got, a water bottle and a puffer, that's it. And I think that focusing on somebody, the person in front of you, and what's important to them, I think that's a big deal, yeah.
Hold you in good stead. Let's do two truths and a lie.
Oh, wow,
Pauline.
Okay. So you won't, again, be surprised to know that when I was reflecting, especially on being here, that my focus is on door knocking. And so the first story I've got to tell you is that twice I've been bitten by a dog. One was a sort of a Rottweiler-esque dog in
a serious dog.
Croydon South. It was an unmade road, and I was walking along with somebody who's not here, but and went to knock on the door, but changed my mind and went back further along the path. The dog broke out through the gate, chased us. We used our clipboard to push the dog down. The dog bit me on the back of the leg. I had to get a tetanus injection. I got a call from head office. I thought it was to check on my well-being, but it was actually to see if they could tell the story to the media. Tetanus injection. I've still got the scar. And
tetanus injections hurt.
Yeah, that's right. I can handle it. I'm
a
woman.
That's true.
And while the woman was trying to pull the dog off, I asked her if she would vote Labor. She agreed, and then it was the Friday, and then on the Monday I called council and dobbed in the dog. The second one, I hope, is not quite as long. Sorry, I've actually got a second dog bite, but that was the second one was a Chihuahua, and I asked for it, and it was in Cranbourne East. The next story is that when my children were young, I took them out of school in kindergarten to do help me with letterboxing and door knocking for Tony Robinson. Was just again a few days before the election. I was a little bit desperate to get people over the line. So it was school and kindergarten, and
that's fine.
That was, but they've all turned out all right.
Yeah.
So that's it. The third story is that I was door knocking, and I'm looking at Danny here. I was door knocking in Cranbourne East. I was invited in. It was a morning, and I was invited in for karaoke. There was a lot of electors in the house, and they were on the Kylie Minogue round, and the tune was "I Should Be So Lucky." And I always wanted to chase a vote, and I don't like singing, but I agreed to go in and sing the tune for a handful.
I think the last
These
one
ones
is
are
not
tough.
true. Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's the last one is not true. Like I have no doubt you would do that if given the opportunity. I just don't know the opportunity has been afforded to you.
I'm going to go with the kids.
No, she's absolutely pulled her kids out of school to do.
I don't think you're admitting to pulling the kids out of school.
What?
Jesse,
I should bring the kids out of school.
what do you got?
Shame on you if you haven't done that. I'm going with the last one.
Last one.
So what's yours?
No, I don't know. What's the
You're saying the karaoke.
Karaoke's a lie.
And David, you're saying
The kids
schools.
are the lie.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So, Jessie, you're right. But I do need to say that I was invited in to perform karaoke. It was Kylie Minogue. It was a morning. It was in Cranbourne East, but I declined.
Oh.
Because I thought that might be career limiting.
Cameras.
And 2 weeks ago, it was in the same street, same house, same family.
Yeah.
They invited me in again.
And you said yes this
I
time.
declined. Same reason.
You could be on your third album deal if you'd played that differently.
I cannot hold a tune.
Wonderful.
David.
Amazing. Well done.
Pauline, good luck with the campaign. Thank you so much.
you.
Great support. All right, Michaela. Michaela Settle, you've come a long way since you're a field organiser. I remember the very first training we did at wherever the hell it was, and you were feverishly taking notes throughout the 5 days of the training. And you know, some people were thinking, how's Michaela tracking this week? And in the end, you absolutely aced it, and one of our strongest field organisers.
The truth of it is that I was unemployed. I was having a midlife crisis. I'd left my husband and I was unemployed and I couldn't get a job. And I was a party
Why not
member.
try the Labor Party?
Yeah. No, but it was even worse than that. I was a party member and this thing came out, said, you know, we're looking for organisers. And it was all these gorgeous young people. And I sent it to my parents and I was like, what about this? Do you think I should do this? And my dad went, no, you're too old. And so when I came for the interview, I was fairly insecure, but I have shown that middle-aged women, we can organise.
Absolutely. So at the last election, because you ran for Buninyong and was duly elected, and then obviously your electorate changed and Eureka. At the last election, you had a 3.6% swing against you on your primary vote. Did you go and confront all 434 people personally that voted against you?
No, I didn't. And it was an interesting election because a substantial part of the electorate changed. And so I'd spent 4 years really working with a wonderful community in Ballarat, the Sebastopol community. And then you wake up one morning and I had a whole new electorate which had Bacchus Marsh in it, a bit of Ballarat and all the way down to Geelong.
What are some of the lessons you learned as a field organiser that you have taken with you into public leadership and as a candidate and an MP?
Yeah, look, pretty much a lot of the things Pauline said, even though she wasn't a field organiser, but the same lessons, that those one-on-one conversations are really where you change. And I love listening to Pauline then when you were talking about teaching you how to speak to people or reminding you how to speak to people. And I think certainly during the whole field training, it was learning those. You know, there's no point in getting on a door and fighting with someone or arguing the case. It's about trying to find that commonality.
Yeah, this may be where you failed.
But you find that commonality and you show them, you know, where you can reach them in that commonality.
All right, let's do this. 2 truths and a lie.
Okay, so these are all hailing back to a long time ago. Some people, a bit like Belinda's Johnny Young, I know who he is. Some might struggle with names, and the funniest one is that Stephen struggled with the name that the young folk will get. The stories I have to tell is I lived in London and I worked as a celebrity agent and I took Jonathan Ross to Spain. So we were doing a corporate gig and we got to the airport and I was on an Australian passport and was taken aside and had to sort of go through a whole rigmarole about my passport. And as a consequence, we missed the plane and he missed the gig. So some people know Jonathan Ross? Okay.
I'm trying to get eyes on Claire Keys Liley to see what faces she's pulling to see whether you're telling the truth. But go on.
Okay, so another time I was trapped, I was stranded in Italy with a bunch of comedians and we'd gone there to do pre-football entertainment and we were stranded there and a bunch of us had to get back to London. We couldn't get flights and so we hired a car and 3 of us legged it across Europe to get back to work in London within 24 hours. One of them was Sean Locke, and that's for the young people in the room. And we stopped in Austria and Sean stole a pillow from a restaurant. And when we got in the car, he said that he was Ruffles, the soft furnishings thief.
The detail.
Yeah. And the final one was in the 90s. I was working the Edinburgh Festival as a media person and I had this young new performer who had only ever done gay bars and very small gigs and I helped him through his first Edinburgh Festival and that was the gorgeous Graham Norton.
Wow. Why you would go from Italy to the English Channel via Austria, that's the lie. There's no ruffles.
Yeah, I think that one too.
So this was before the Schengen visa and because I was an Australian, we had to skirt round. We couldn't go through France, so we had to skirt round through.
Is she always like this?
Yes. Like, the only thing that made sense about that is that it was like she found some other way to get it done.
And there was programmatic specificity. Wasn't it?
First time the word Schengen has ever been on this podcast too.
Which is funny, you say that a lot.
I love the Schengen zone.
Yeah, you do love the Schengen zone.
Settle
so
up
which
for
one
us.
was the lie? Well, it was the Jonathan Ross one, but it was only a part lie because we did get the plane and we did get to Spain.
Very good. Well done. Very good. Thank you very much, Michaela Settle. All right. We're in the home stretch, folks. Now we're going to do categories. And first of all, thank you very much for giving us your nominations. We're going to try and move through these reasonably quickly. Maybe some folks don't know who Mel Meninga is. Former Canberra Raiders, legend of NRL, ran for the Labor Party in an ACT local election.
No, it was not the Labor Party. It was the Christian Democrats.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Just
Is it really?
It was not us.
Oh, I thought it was ours. Anyway, there you go. Anyway, so he does a media conference. First question, why do you want to run? And he sort of goes, oh. And then sits back, runs his hands through his hair and goes, no, I can't do this, and then walks off. And that was the end of his political career. Let's get into it. Okay, Tory with a typewriter. David, I think you've got a nomination.
I do. So my rant concerns the recent IBAC report. And I'm picking on...
I have no views.
I'm picking on Damon Johnson at The Australian. But in truth, I'm annoyed with all of the coverage. But I've picked out some special quotes here because I think it goes to a important point of principle, which is what are the proper powers of an elected government? And here, the government of Daniel Andrews, which admittedly had some very shady people working for it,
Who were not interviewed for the report.
So this was an IBAC report into the government's negotiations with the United Firefighters Union. It was a report that took 8 years and $8 million to prepare. It was conducted in extreme secrecy and it went longer than the Second World War. And what did we get for this? The report finally came out. It accused the government of conducting secret negotiations with the union. And by secret, I guess they mean not in front of a press conference. It described the conduct serious and concerning. It, as I mentioned, spent $8 million, which I think is a test case for why we don't need IBAC at all. It accused the government of holding private meetings.
Could we just go back to the part where you thought 22% was a very concerning corruption number?
And IBAC found that Mr Marshall exerted extraordinary influence over people and was afforded privileged access to senior members of the government, which makes me wonder what sort of access should he have been afforded and how was it privileged? I guess my point here is that while in the wash-up, I did personally hold the view, as a matter of public policy, that the government made a mistake in the deal that it struck and the way that it struck the deal. It was entirely within its rights to do it. We elect governments to govern. A Premier of the day, confronted with an industrial dispute, should not be seen to be breaking any rules by engaging in negotiations with that union or whatever the dispute is and with whomever the dispute is being held with. The Premier and the Governor of the day are elected to govern. And what ultimately IBAC is doing here is seeking to, it's part of this general attempt to constrain the powers and prerogatives of elected governments by wrapping them up in a world of tribunals and unelected public servants and others, unelected people with no mandate to govern who seek to control our democracy, but they probably went to the right schools. So stuff that. The government, in my view, did make a mistake here, and it will take that issue to the ballot box and the judgment of the people, the judgment that matters. The idea that some unelected bunch of no-hopers should denounce the right of a government of the day to govern, to use the mandate that the people who are sovereign gave it, I think is an outrage. And that is something we should fight.
I want to know what he thought was wrong with the deal. But anyway, we don't have to go into it.
There we go. We got to see what David was like as a federal official at CW before the Industrial Relations Commission. There you go. All right. Other nominations that we had for Tory the Typewriter. Bandar said all of them, except maybe Raph Epstein. And B said Jackie Felgate. Duh. There we go. Thought Sebastian would like that. Okay, let's move on to the Melbourne Inga In Over My Head Awards. Hamish, Angelica de Camilo, who's the Greens candidate in Paran, who's now run 5 times and lost every one of them.
Serial candidate?
Serial candidate. Anonymous has said that One Nation twat, brackets, you may pick. Well, and I must admit, like, once they do announce all of their candidates, and when we do start doing the weekly election campaign episodes and we do these categories, the plethora of Melbourne nominations we're going to get from One Nation candidates, it's just going to be overwhelming. Like, this section is going to take like 20 minutes just to get through all of them.
The real question is whether voters will care that they're in over their heads. That is the probably unanswerable element of it.
Probably answerable questions. Natalie, does the One Nation leader Warren Pickering know that the cabinet isn't an actual cabinet? Is it not actually a cabinet? Dom, will Dave Hughes run for the Liberals?
He's an angry man, isn't he?
Fuck. Unbelievable.
I feel like he's strayed from comedy.
Failed candidate, property mogul. That's who Dave Hughes is now. Did you see him actually? He got interviewed like there was like a Herald Sun sort of puff piece, sort of trying to justify him, and he's like, "Oh, look, I don't own a lot of properties. I own a block of flats in St Kilda."
That one house from the block, and a couple of others.
But I'm not a mogul.
Not a mogul. I just think kids that spend $10 on a share shouldn't be taxed.
Yeah. I've got one. Probably unanswered question. Will One Nation leader Warren Pickering be invited to the leaders' debates during the campaign?
I think he will. I don't think it's unanswerable. Like, far out.
There are two reasons why.
If I'm the media news director, I'm like, absolutely, we're getting him on.
There are two reasons why he should. The first is it's in the interest of the Australian Labor Party for him to be exposed to that kind of moment. The second reason is you would think the TVs would just gobble it up, wouldn't they? I mean, as news as entertainment, like, buy the popcorn and watch that person just burst into flames on screen. It's going to be gold.
And watch Jess Wilson just run 100 miles from Warren and his crazy batshit ideas.
I think that if they are, I am generally a fan of in-the-round debates, whether you get the community, the real people.
Scott, his debate's going to be brilliant.
No, but I think that have the journalists do it for One Nation.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a little bit.
Yeah, like get him in there. Get him in there. Put him in the ring. Put him in the game. Let him throw some fastballs. And the other one, why is Stephen wearing a hat indoors? That's from Thomas. Where are you, Thomas? I don't think that's
down with the kids.
I don't think that's your real name. I didn't get a haircut for the show because it's normally a audio visual thing. And I forgot that you were all going to be here. And I was like, fuck, I'll put a hat on. Alexander Downer, political judgment. Wow, I've got a lot here. Anything from James Newbury. That's from a non. And James Newbury, he's the guy that's got the small head and the big suit. Is that right? And he looks like two guys in the suit.
Yeah, that's it. Two children in a suit.
Anon, again, just like, own up, mate, if you're going to have a crack. What David, brackets, Yoda, said about corruption. Didn't like that. Anon didn't like that.
Comment, what, for or against or indifferent?
Anon?
Well, you've had several positions, frankly, during the course of the podcast.
If you don't
I don't know where you sit.
If you don't like my principles, don't worry. I have others.
We say that for the Labor Unity podcast, David. Don't tell people that. And Ben, who actually is one of our wonderful volunteers, has helped us do all of this tonight. Shout out to everyone who used the QR codes to have a crack at their factional enemies in this category. The Labor Party fucking rules. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it, I'm assuming. And flex category, also from Hamish. Actually, these are the ones I haven't had a proper chance to read. Sussan Lay for touring America on a Greyhound bus and discovering poverty, class, and the need to help working class people only after she left the Parliamentary Liberal Party leadership.
Yeah, but that's like Julie Bishop finding that feminism was a thing the day she walked out the door.
Yeah, they find God
With
afterwards.
their red shoes, I was like, where the fuck have you been?
These deathbed conversions by these Tories.
Yeah, it's like Malcolm Turnbull. And I listen to him on the radio now and I think, gosh, he would have made a good Prime Minister.
Matt, the last 2 years have seen a number of public services take industrial action with teachers, nurses, allied health, and now the doctors entering industrial action. Health and education are usually two Labor strong points. How will the party win back thousands of voters that may still be bruised by their EBAs? It's a very serious hot take at this stage of the show.
David?
Oh, I just feel like I'm just going to step on a landmine here. So there was recently a teachers' strike, and being
David, a massive supporter.
And so I have my two beautiful children I took into the city so that I could dump them on my mother while I tried to set about making a more productive and powerful Victoria. And as I was walking through the mall to take my kids on this journey, the AEU rally it hadn't started, but it was starting to gather. There were two sort of centres of gravity, organising centres of this AEU rally, and one of them was entitled Socialists in Schools, and the other one was Teachers for Gaza. And I said to my kids, hang on kids, just for a minute, I'm going to go and talk to these guys. And Ned, my son, looked up at me and said, don't do it, Dad. I don't need it, you don't need it. I said, no, I'm not going to, I'm just going to go and say hello. The chap I was chatting to said, are you a bit of a lefty? And I said, I'd describe myself more as an extreme centrist. So we had a brief chat about Marxism, Leninism in the modern economy. My son's holding my hand like, this could go pear-shaped any moment. So that's to sort of circle back to the start. No, I'm not enthusiastic.
Anything else, Jessie? You good?
I support the teachers in everything they do.
Very good. All right. Okay, we are done. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, Morris Blackburn Lawyers and Dunn Street. What a great job. What a great job Dunn Street do. Can we thank our socially democratic volunteers at the back of the room who've done a fantastic job tonight. And can also we thank our producer, Grace over here. And Katie from Trades Hall, who did all the tech tonight. Thank you so much. Can we thank our wonderful Labor MPs that came along this evening? Daniela, Pauline, Michaela, Belinda. And also can we thank my two aid and accomplices, co-hosts, David and Jessie. One in the room. I also want to thank a lot of our dedicated, loyal, social democratic listeners that don't actually live here and reside here in Victoria, but also contributed to donating. For example, one of our most loyal listeners who we met in Adelaide for the national conference, Adrian, he just he lives in New South Wales. He bought 4 tickets and said, give it to someone in Young Labor. It's fantastic, right? And last but not least, thank you all very much for coming along tonight. Really appreciate it. Drink all the booze. Get rid of all the booze.
Hey, Social Democrats. Thanks for listening. Today's episode was hosted by myself, Stephen Donnelly, and produced by Grace Eyre. If you like the show, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like the show, then join our Patreon community for early and ad-free access to each episode. We regularly take questions and comments from our Patreon members, so get in there if you want to have your say. And finally, get all the latest updates and bonus content by following Socially Democratic on our social media channels. The links are in our show notes. See you next Friday.